Imagine being celebrated as the symbol of hope. A name people once cheered for, a presence that drew crowds, admiration, and trust wherever you went. Now imagine returning to that same place, only to find those cheers replaced with silence, suspicion, and a growing movement demanding you stay away. That's exactly the situation unfolding right now. What was supposed to be a triumphant return has turned into something far more complicated. Because behind the polished headlines and carefully crafted statements, there's another story forming. One filled with uncomfortable questions, shifting public opinion, and details that don't quite add up. And the more people look into it, the harder it becomes to ignore what's really going on. But this isn't just about a return that didn't go as planned. It's about something much bigger. Because what's happening right now isn't just a shift in public opinion. It's a complete reversal of perception. The kind of reversal that doesn't happen overnight. And definitely doesn't happen without a reason. On the surface, everything still looks controlled. Statements are polished. Appearances are carefully managed. And the narrative being presented is simple, even reassuring. But beneath that surface, the numbers are starting to tell a very different story. Quietly, almost unnoticed at first, something began to change. Small concerns turned into questions. Questions turned into discussions. And those discussions are now turning into something much louder. Because once people started looking closer, they began to notice patterns. And once those patterns became visible, it raised a much more uncomfortable question. Was the image everyone believed in ever the full picture? Or was it just the version people were meant to see? And to understand how things reached this point, you have to go back to when everything still felt real. To really understand why this shift feels so dramatic, you have to go back to when everything felt different. Back to a time when the connection seemed genuine. When the image people saw didn't feel manufactured. It felt real. There was a moment. One that people still remember clearly. Not because it was staged, but because it didn't look staged at all. Standing there, in the middle of a difficult situation. No barriers, no distance, no carefully controlled environment. Just a direct, human interaction. It was simple. Listening, speaking, showing up. And for a lot of people, that moment meant something. It created the belief that this wasn't just about status or image, but about connection, about understanding, about purpose. That's what made it powerful, because it didn't feel like performance. It felt like sincerity, and that sincerity became the foundation of everything that followed. People didn't just support the image. They believed in it. They defended it. They trusted it. Which is exactly why what's happening now feels so difficult to ignore. Because when something that once felt authentic starts to feel different, people notice. And once that doubt begins, it doesn't stay small for long. But fast forward to now. And that same image is starting to feel harder to recognize. The connection that once felt open now feels distant. The accessibility people once appreciated now seems replaced by something far more controlled. And it's not just a subtle change. It's the kind of shift that makes people stop and ask, what changed? Because the difference isn't just in perception, it's in behavior. Moments that once felt natural now feel structured. Interactions that once felt spontaneous now feel selective. And the biggest difference of all is who gets access and who doesn't. Where there were once open environments, there are now restrictions. Where there was once direct engagement, there are now layers. And where people once felt included, many now feel pushed to the outside looking in. At first, it was easy to ignore, easy to explain away. After all, change happens. But then those small differences started to stack up. One moment became two. Two became a pattern. And once that pattern became visible, it became impossible to unsee. Because when reality no longer matches the image people believed in, the question is no longer if something changed, but why. And then, that moment finally came. What had been building quietly in the background suddenly moved into the spotlight. It didn't start as something massive. In fact, at the beginning, it was barely noticeable. A small group. A simple concern. A question that, at first, didn't seem like it would go very far. But this time, it didn't fade away. It grew. Slowly at first. Then all at once. More people started paying attention. More voices joined in. And before long, what began as a minor issue turned into something much harder to ignore. The numbers started climbing. Hundreds turned into thousands. And those thousands kept increasing. Not because of hype, but because the question behind it resonated. It was simple, direct, and impossible to dismiss. Why should this be accepted without scrutiny? That one question changed everything. Because once it was asked publicly, it gave others permission to ask their own. And when enough people start asking questions at the same time, it stops being a coincidence and starts becoming a movement. What made this different was that it wasn't driven by a single voice. It was driven by momentum. And momentum is something you can't easily control. Because once it reaches a certain point, it doesn't matter how small it started. What matters is how big it becomes. But while the public focus was growing, another detail began to surface. And this time, it wasn't about perception. It was about numbers. Real numbers. The kind that immediately change how people see a situation. Because once those numbers became visible, the conversation shifted almost instantly. What had been a question of trust now became a question of value. And that's where things started to feel uncomfortable. The pricing alone was enough to raise eyebrows. Not just because it was high, but because of what it represented. For the same cost, people began pointing out what else that money could cover. Practical things. Necessary things. Things that made the comparison feel impossible to ignore. And once those comparisons started spreading, they stuck. Because suddenly, it wasn't just about attending something exclusive. It felt like being asked to justify it. But what made the situation even more questionable wasn't just the price itself. It was what happened next. Without warning, the structure changed. New options appeared. Lower tiers. Adjusted access. And the timing of those changes raised even more questions than the original price ever did. Because when something is positioned as premium, it doesn't suddenly become flexible overnight. Unless something isn't going as planned. And that's the part people couldn't ignore. Was this always the strategy? Or was it a reaction? Because if it was a reaction, then it suggested something far more important. That demand wasn't matching expectation. And once that possibility entered the conversation, everything started to look different. But even that wasn't the full picture. Because just as people were trying to process the pricing, more details started surfacing. And this time, they didn't come one at a time. They came all at once. First, there were the questions about how things were being managed behind the scenes. Not official explanations, but gaps. Missing clarity where there should have been transparency. Then came concerns about the structure itself. How decisions were being made. Who was responsible. And why certain details didn't seem to align. And just as those questions started gaining attention, another layer appeared. Financial irregularities. Not confirmed answers, but enough inconsistencies to raise serious concern. The kind that makes people pause and look closer. And when they did, they found even more. Reports that didn't fully explain movements. Transactions that lacked clear reasoning. Details that, on their own, might not have meant much, but together, started forming a pattern. And that's when everything began to shift. Because one issue can be dismissed, two can be debated. But when multiple red flags start pointing in the same direction, people stop asking if something is wrong, and start asking how deep it goes. And just when it seemed like the situation couldn't get more complicated, Another unexpected detail surfaced, one that didn't just raise questions, but completely changed how the entire situation was being viewed. And then came the moment that changed everything. Not a leak, not a rumor, but a response. A single statement that was supposed to calm the situation, and ended up doing the exact opposite. When the growing concerns were finally addressed, the answer people received wasn't clarification. It wasn't transparency. It was dismissal. The kind of response that doesn't just ignore the question. It undermines the people asking it. And that's where everything shifted. Because instead of reducing tension, it amplified it. Instantly. What had been frustration turned into anger. What had been doubt turned into conviction. And what had been a growing conversation turned into a full-scale reaction. People didn't just disagree with the response. They felt insulted by it. As if their concerns didn't matter. As if the questions themselves were the problem, not the answers. And that perception spread fast. Faster than anything that had come before it. Because outrage travels quickly, especially when it feels justified. Within a short time, more voices joined in, more attention was drawn, and the very thing that was meant to shut the situation down ended up fueling it instead. Because once people feel dismissed, they don't step back. They push harder. And that's exactly what happened. And at this point, it stopped being about a single decision, or a single moment. Because when you step back and look at everything together, a much bigger picture starts to form. This isn't just a misunderstanding. It's a pattern of changes. In behavior, in messaging, and in how things are being presented to the public. And once that pattern becomes visible, it raises a much more serious question. Is this still the same image people once believed in? Or has it become something else entirely? Because what we're seeing now doesn't feel like a one-off situation. It feels like a shift. A shift from openness to control. From connection to separation. From purpose to positioning. And that shift carries consequences. Because once trust begins to weaken, everything built on top of it becomes unstable. The support, the credibility, the influence, all of it depends on one thing: belief. And right now, that belief is being tested, not by speculation, but by what people can see for themselves. The decisions, the responses, the inconsistencies, they all point in the same direction. And that direction isn't growth. It's pressure. Pressure on the image. Pressure on the reputation. And most importantly, pressure on the future. Because if this is the direction things are heading, then the real question is no longer about what happened, but about what happens next. At this point, the situation is no longer unclear. The questions have been asked. The reactions have been seen. And the pattern is difficult to ignore. What once looked like a story of growth and connection now feels very different. Not because of one moment, but because of everything that followed it. The changes, the decisions, the responses, they've all led to the same place. A point where the image no longer matches the reality people are seeing. And when that happens, trust doesn't disappear instantly, but it does begin to fade. Slowly at first, then all at once. And that's where things stand now. Not at the beginning of a rise, but at a turning point. One that will determine what this becomes moving forward. Because the future from here is uncertain. It could be a reset, a correction, a return to what people once believed in. Or it could be something else entirely. Something defined not by what was promised, but by what was revealed. And that's the part of this story that isn't finished yet. Because there are still details coming out. Still questions being explored. And still pieces that haven't fully connected. Which means what you've seen so far might only be the beginning. And what comes next could change everything.